Welcome. For this study, we're going to be in a little different direction from other past studies. We're going to be in the book of Ecclesiastes. Going to be looking at the very last chapter of Ecclesiastes, Ecclesiastes 12. As you can see, got the Bible out here in front of me, Ecclesiastes 12. If you don't, you know what to do. If you've never read the book of Ecclesiastes, it's said to be written by Solomon. There's advice going throughout. It's not exactly like Proverbs. It's a slightly different with that. Solomon starts writing out in Ecclesiastes 1 and 2. He's talking about when he was younger. He tried this, he tried this, he did this, he did this, he did this. I tried it, but it's like there was no satisfaction in it. It was just kind of empty, hollow. And we go through Ecclesiastes, and Solomon keeps going back and forth with that. I did this, I did that, just kind of hollow, not satisfying. He comes all the way to the end here in chapter 12, and things kind of gel together. I encourage you, if you have not read Ecclesiastes, to do that. 12 chapters may sound like a lot. It's really not. You could easily read this in a sitting. That wouldn't be a problem. But let's get it going here. Ecclesiastes 12. We're going to start right at verse 1. We're going to go all the way through to the end of the chapter, just kind of walking our way through as we normally do with studies. And so we come to the end of this musing over life. My advice to you is remember your Creator, God, while you are young, before life gets hard and the injustice of old age comes upon you, before the years arrive when pleasure feels far out of reach, before the sun and the light of the moon and the stars fade to darkness, and before cloud-covered skies return after the rain. That's verses 1 and 2. Solomon is telling us here, it's very important when you are young to set down this foundation. As he says, remember. The word here doesn't mean just recall. It is similar to when God remembered the Israelites in Egypt. He hadn't forgotten them there or anything like that. Remembering meant that he was about to act. He was getting ready. And so here, this is what the kind of thing that Solomon is meaning. Remember your Creator while you are young. Not just recall, oh, yep, I know about him, but put this into action. Put your faith into action. Really get to know the Lord. Put that grounding down, that foundation down while you are young. Because as we go on in life, and this is the honesty of the Bible's honest about life. Before life gets hard and injustice of old age comes upon you. Because life does get hard. You get older, you find out more things, you understand more things. Before the years arrive when pleasure seems far out of reach, when you're all caught up in work and family and all these responsibilities, all that you can drift away from the Lord. But if you get your foundation down with the Lord while you are young, remembering him while you are young, then this time later is much better. Not that life is not hard, because that's another thing. As you read through Ecclesiastes, Solomon never says, oh, serve the Lord and everything's sunshine and roses. It doesn't say that. Life will still be hard. God does not dissipate the hardness of life. That's just the human condition. That is what it is here in the now. That whole idea that you may have heard in the church, or people may have told you about, hey, if you're Christian, everything is great. There's a kernel of truth there. But when we just say that, it gives people who are not Christian, it gives young Christians, not just young in age, but maybe just became a Christian, it gives them the sense that something must be wrong with me if my life is difficult, if I'm having to struggle. And that is not the case, because clearly Scripture says that this is life. But let's keep walking here. Remember him before the arms and legs of the keeper of the house begin to tremble, before the strong grow uneasy and bent over with age, before toothless gums aren't able to chew food and eyes grow dim. Remember him before the doors are shut in the streets and hearing fails and everyday sounds fade away, before the slightest sound of a bird's cheep awakens the sleeping, but the song itself has fallen silent. And so the brutal honesty here of Solomon, just as these things can happen, not they all will happen, but they can happen as you get older. And that's why it's even more important that when we are young, we remember, we lay that foundation. Lay that foundation. Very, very important. People will be afraid of falling from heights and terrifying obstacles in the streets. Realize that their hair turns white like the blossoms on the almond tree. One becomes slow and large like a gluttonous grasshopper. Even caper berries no longer stimulate desire. In the end, all must go to our eternal home, while there are mourners in the streets. So before the silver cord of life is snapped and the golden bowl is shattered, before the earthen jar is smashed at the spring and the wheel at the well is broken, before the dust returns to the earth that gave it, the spirit breath returns to God who breathed it, let us remember our Creator. Life is fleeting. It just slips through your fingers. All vanishes like mist. I can't help but think that as Solomon says these things, he's remembering his siblings. You go back in Scripture and look at the trouble that there was with David's kids. Lots of trouble. Certainly Solomon would know about Absalom and all that, Ammon, and that whole craziness going through there. He's looking back and thinking about all that as he's telling this to us, telling this to everyone who will read this. Not only did the teacher attain wisdom by careful observation, study, and setting out many proverbs, but he was also generous with his knowledge and eagerly shared it with people. The teacher also searched for just the right words to bring hope and encouragement, and he wrote honestly about truth and the realities of life. The words of the wise are like goads, the collected sayings of the masters are like the nail-tipped sticks used to drive the sheep, given by one shepherd. So be warned, my child, of anything else that might be said. There is no end to writing books, and excessive study only exhausts the body. And when all is said and done, here is the last word. Worship and reverence the one true God. Keep his commandments, for this is what God expects of every person. For God will judge every action, including everything done in secret, whether it be good or evil. And as we end that there, of chapter 12, what you're reading here isn't saying, hey, you better watch it because God's going to grind you into the dust. When all is said and done, here's the last word. Worship and reverence the one true God, keeping his commandments, for this is what God expects of every person. The wording there, the meaning with all this is that, yes, God has these commands, but it's not this taskmaster, you better. It is, hey, I thought this through. I can see what you cannot. I'm telling you, if you follow me, if you trust me, there's a lot of hard things, and I will bring you through them. Because without me, When you get to these hard things, they can crush you. And that's it. You'll be right there. I don't know if you've ever known anybody that's stuck. I'm not talking about hard things kill you. I'm talking about somebody who is stuck and they just cannot move on. They just cannot. They're just stuck right there. They've been crushed. They're flattened out on the ground. They can't move on. This is the advice of Ecclesiastes 12. Worship and reverence the one true God. Remember your Creator when you are young. Set that foundation so that no matter what happens, you're walking with the Lord and not alone. This is our study for today. Remember these things, not just recall, put them into action today.